Hi everyone, welcome to the third session in the St John's webinar series this year. This session is all about choosing your university subject. So, before we get going, I'm going to launch a poll just so I know who I'm talking to in terms of year groups. So I will launch the Who Are You poll now. So if you could respond to that, that would be really helpful for me. So it looks like at the moment we've got majority year 12 and some year 11 and some year 10s. And we have an advisor or supporter as well. Okay, that's really helpful to know. So yeah, majority year 12s and some year 11s and year 10s and an advisor or supporter. Thank you, everyone. Right, I'll just close that poll now. We'll have another one, a second poll, very shortly as well for this session, which is very exciting. So choosing your university subject. This poll is to gauge how you feel about that question, that idea. What are you going to study at university? What are your thoughts about that? So I want you to answer this next poll with either of the three options. So the poll will be launched now, and you can either respond to, let me just launch it now. There we go. So that should come up now. So course choices poll. So either you're pretty sure, that's option A, you're pretty sure you know what you want to study at university. B is you're torn at the moment between a few subjects, a few courses. And then C is you really, all options on the table. You haven't got a set fixed idea yet what you want to study. There are no right answers. I'm sure you'll be pleased to know. The best questions are the ones where there are no right answers. So it doesn't matter what you put here. This is just really helpful for me to understand where you are currently. So it looks like the majority are torn between a few courses. We have a few of you who are pretty sure, and some of you who are still really options open. And I suppose that will depend often on where you are at the stage you're at in your education, and how much investigation you've done into course choices and university. Great, that's really helpful. Thank you so much for indulging me for both of those polls this evening. Thank you, everyone. It's been a long week. Okay, let's get going. So questions to consider in today's session. What are your academic interests? So what do you find interesting in terms of subjects that you're studying and that you want to study? What are your options in terms of the subjects, the courses that are out there in terms of a higher education option of course or subject? And what factors are going to impact which one you choose? And then finally, we will look towards the end of the session how subjects at university are connected to careers. We will have a dedicated webinar session on degrees and careers. So we will not go into too much detail about that today, but I think it's relevant when we're talking about course choices at university. So that's why I've included that. Okay, so I've got a quiz for you. 2 polls and a quiz. I'm spoiling you this Thursday. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with magazine style quizzes where you put your responses and you tot up your answers and it gives you a response, it gives you an answer. Essentially, I'm going to ask you, I think, 4 questions, and you can either choose the triangle, the circle, or the square response. So it's completely up to you. It's like a personality quiz in a magazine, basically, but it's for course choice. So it's perhaps more useful. Okay, first question then. What sort of questions do you like to discuss? So by this, I mean, when you're in a lesson, when you're doing your own independent study, what sort of questions do you find yourself spending the most amount of time on? Is it questions that tend to have an explicitly correct answer? There's a problem and there's a solution to that problem. If so, then the triangle is your response. Or is it more questions that have many different responses and it depends on how you approach them? Is that your response? If so, you're a circle in this sense. Or you're a square if you like questions which make you think about things in terms of categories, in terms of patterns, things you can count, and categorize in that way. So I'll leave you a moment or two to make a note just on a piece of paper, whether you think for question 1, you are more triangle, circle, or square, and then at the end we'll count how many you've got. Okay, so the next one. What kind of information do you prefer to learn and think about? Principles and statistics, which tell you more about how the world works. That's a triangle answer. You may start to see the patterns emerging as we go through. Or is it perspectives and motivations that are portrayed through different mediums? That's a circle answer. Apologies, I should have put media. My Latin plural knowledge is lacking. Or square answer. You prefer the kind of information that comes about through reports, findings, and you prefer thinking about interactions and connections between people and things. So that's a square response. So I'll leave you a moment or two to think about that one. If anyone has just joined us, you can watch the recording for the first question. We're just doing a quiz at the moment about course choice, trying to understand what your interests are in terms of academic and subject interests. So the next question for you to write down as shape 4 is this one. What kind of task do you prefer doing? Do you prefer solving problems, doing experiments? That would be triangle. Circle answer in this case is analysing sources, materials, and writing essays, writing long form responses to those source materials in whatever form they come. That's a circle response. And then square for this one is conducting surveys and doing research. So what kind of task do you prefer doing? And then, yes, I think this is my last question in our magazine personality course choice quiz. How would you determine whether an answer is true? So, triangle, you would figure out if an answer is true because you get the same result after repeating a set process with controlled factors. You've controlled variables, you're repeating the same process, and if you get the same result, that's how you know the answer is true. That's a triangle response. Circle, figuring out the truth is not as important to you as exploring a whole range of different arguments and approaches and perspectives. And then the square response to this question, testing an established theory or model against information that you've gathered from the real world. That's how you determine whether an answer is true. You can put, I should have said this at the start, sorry. You can put 2 if you're torn between 2. You can put 2 shapes. So if you're making a note of all your shapes and counting them up, we had 4 questions there. So now for the answers. Now to reveal the kind of person that you are in this magazine quiz. If you're mostly triangle, then that tends to correlate with STEM, so science and maths-based courses. So things like mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, computer science, different engineering courses, and medical sciences and veterinary medicine. That's not an exhaustive list, but those are the STEM courses that might be ones for you to think about. Once I've gone through the other shapes, it'll be interesting to know if this matches up with the sorts of courses and subjects that you're thinking about anyway, or not. If you gave mostly circle responses, then you might be thinking about arts and humanities courses, so things like theology, literature, music, classics. Again, not an exhaustive list. History of art could be an example of that as well. And then if you gave mostly square responses to those 4 quiz questions, then you might be looking at the different social sciences again, not an exhaustive list: education, psychology, anthropology, politics, linguistics, law, sociology, subjects like that. If you've got a mix of all the different shapes, then interdisciplinary courses, ones which bring in many different subject areas, languages, philosophy, geography, architecture, they might be ones that you could look at. Economics at the bottom there. So now I want to know from you all, before we move on to the next part, which is looking specifically at Cambridge courses and thinking a bit about the courses that we offer at Cambridge, how did you find the results of the quiz? Are you surprised? Does it make sense? Is it similar to things that you have already been considering in terms of your university course choices? I'd love you to reflect on that in the chat if you can. Thank you. I can see responses coming in. Yeah, so it seems to be, for a lot of people, yeah, matches what they've initially thought, very similar, and it makes sense to each of you. Interesting. Some other people are saying they got a mix, but the ways that they've answered the questions makes them think that that does match what they're thinking about and the courses that have come up for them. Very interesting. Excellent. So with that in mind, with those thoughts about how you like to learn, what you like to think about in terms of academic questions, we're now going to look at the Cambridge undergraduate courses. So I've got a screenshot there on the left of our 30 undergraduate courses. And the main thing that I want you to take away from today's session is that, like other universities, our courses are very broad and flexible. What you'll find is that at Cambridge, we have over 65 subject areas that our courses cover and 30 courses that cover those subject areas. So whilst we don't have a specific aerospace engineering course, we have an engineering broad course within which you can specialize in aerospace engineering or any other type of engineering that you might wish to do so. Are there any of those familiar to any of you? Have you looked at any of the Cambridge courses? I'm just wondering if I should dwell on any of them and explain a bit more about them. Human, Social and Political Sciences, right at the bottom there, that one is quite a specific course to Cambridge. It covers sociology, anthropology, politics, international relations. So within that, you would specialize in one stream or the other. Yes, seems like lots of people have seen these courses, they're familiar with some of them. It's really interesting to see. Oh yeah, we've got a range of subject interest, it seems. So land economy is quite a Cambridge specific course as well. It's a mix between law, economics, and thinking about the environment, built environment. So it's kind of a mix between law and economics and a bit of geography as well. Someone had asked that. I'm trying to find the best definition for ASNAC. When I think of ASNAC, I think of Beowulf. So I know that is one of the texts that ASNAC students study. But it's early Middle Ages, Scandinavian countries, languages, culture, people, material culture, art, history, the literature, the texts. If you're interested in things like English, do check that one out because it's related to the English faculty here in Cambridge. So what you can do is when you get a copy of these slides, you can click on that link at the bottom and it will lead you to the A to Z. So if there are any subject areas that you're interested in, then you can explore which courses cover those subject areas. I think I've got the tab ready for us. Let me just see. Yes, perfect. So here is what it brings up, this A to Z of subjects. So you'll see, yeah, aerospace engineering, aerothermal engineering. We don't have specific courses for them, but we do have the engineering course within which you can pick those. What else do I want to pick out? Yes, there we go. Economics is a good example there. So the topic of economics, you can study that through the economics course, all through land economy, and indeed through our maths course as well. So the ones listed underneath are the Cambridge undergraduate courses, and the ones in bold are the subject areas. So things like Egyptology, the environment, things like that. So that it's a really useful way in, I think, to our courses. So how do you decide on your university course choices? These are some factors that you might consider. Some of them may seem really obvious, but it's really worth putting all of them down and thinking about all of them and giving them equal weight as well. So when you're thinking about university course choices, it really helps to think about what you enjoy and excel at now in terms of your school subjects. It is also worth thinking about the future in the sense, not just the here and now of what you enjoy, but where you want to go. What do you want to do after school? What sort of career, job, industry do you see for yourself? That can help make some course choices. And then course content. So a lot of university courses are called the same thing. You know, a lot of universities offer history courses, geography courses, but if you just pick two of those from two different universities and they have the same course name, don't think that they will cover the same things. So course content, by that I mean going into thinking about what the topics are that you have to take, the core compulsory topics, what options there are beyond the compulsory modules within that university course, and then also the ways that you'll be assessed and the ways that you will be taught and the ways that you will learn as well. So what opportunities are there for any placements in industry, fieldwork opportunities, studying abroad, doing some research? All of this will be contained within the course page, usually online, but some universities do have physical prospectus books still. So you'll look for each course at exactly what they call history or what they call maths actually entails at that university. And what you will find is that it can vary quite a lot in terms of what's covered, how you're assessed, etc. And ultimately, this is really the key takeaway from today's session. Today's session is all about course choice. I'm giving you as much information and guidance and advice as I can. It's ultimately your choice. The best course choice for you will be one that you have made with all the information that you need and that you've made for yourself, and not because you think it's what someone in your family thinks you should do or what your friends are all sort of opting for in terms of university choices. It is your choice. That is a really powerful thing. It can seem really overwhelming. I remember that feeling as well, but it's ultimately your choice what you study at university, if you go to university, and what you study. It's really up to you, both of those things. And related to this, your decision about what you study might change. So you might think at the stage where you're at now, I know a lot of you were saying at the beginning that you were torn when you were answering the poll at the beginning, that you're torn between two. It's a long process of deciding. As you discover more about yourself, about what you like, what you excel at, as you get more advice from your teachers, your decision may change, and that's perfectly fine. Some people, it doesn't change. For many years, they are set on one thing, and that ends up being the thing that they study at university. But for other people, it can be one lesson that they go to, it can be one taster lecture, it can be one summer school program, it can be anything at all. One documentary you watch, an article you read, something your teacher recommends to you, anything at all. That can be a factor, and that can change your decision, set you off on a different path. We have a really helpful webpage on choosing your degree. So I've linked it at the bottom there. It goes through some of these factors that you might want to consider. Okay. Now we have come to UCAS, the UCAS slide. So I think you probably have heard of UCAS, but if you haven't, it's essentially the online portal that you make university applications through, the Universities and Colleges Admissions Service. Do look at the main UCAS webpage for more information, but I've drawn out for you a few of the key, I'm not sure if I can see all of my slide there. Let me go back. Sorry, I'm going forward, not back. There we go. For me, the bottom bullet point was cut off, so I've just hopefully rectified that for you. So in UCAS, you have 5 slots to fill. So 5 university course choices. You can apply for up to 5. For Oxford courses, for Cambridge courses, and for medicine, dentistry, and veterinary medicine courses, you have to apply early. There's an early UCAS deadline for those courses or those universities. And this is usually this year, 2024, it is the 15th of October, 6 p.m. UK time. It's usually around that time, mid-October. You can start your UCAS application from May in the year that you're going to apply, but you can't submit it until the 3rd of September. So you can start, you can make your account, set up, put your basic details in and have a look, and you can save your progress and come back to it periodically. And you can start doing that quite soon from May. And the first point at which you can submit is the 3rd of September. If you are applying for medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, veterinary scientist courses, one thing I should note at this stage, Cambridge, we don't offer dentistry here, but this is a broadly applicable slide, so I've included it. So if you're applying for those medical sciences-based courses, you can apply for up to 4 in the medicine, dentistry, veterinary medicine, or veterinary science, whichever one you've chosen, up to 4 of those. But your 5th choice has to be something related, like biology. So it can't be all 5 medicine, for instance. And you can add choices in UCAS. You can add more of your slots that have a different deadline, a different submission deadline later, but you can only have the 5 in total. When you are applying for your undergraduate degree, for your first degree via UCAS, this online portal, you have to choose between Oxford or Cambridge. If you're going to apply to one of them, you have to choose only one of them. You can't apply to both Oxford and Cambridge at undergraduate level. And if you've picked Oxford or if you've picked Cambridge, you have to then choose one course at either of those institutions. Other universities will let you apply to multiple courses within that institution, within that university. Have a look on those universities' web pages and get in touch with them to confirm those details. But most other universities will usually let you do that. So, as I say, head to that UCAS page for more information, but that's the main overview. In terms of subject choices, keeping your options open, we've got 2 slides here. The first one is for science courses. So this is a Cambridge specific slide, but I think it is a broadly applicable piece of advice as well. So at Cambridge, we advise applicants for our science courses to take 2 to 3 of biology, chemistry, maths, further maths, and physics, because we see that most successful applicants for our Cambridge science courses have 3 to 4 science or maths A-levels. So some typical combinations are things like chemistry and biology, physics and maths, and chemistry and physics. And I've got listed there a few of our recommended or required subject combinations. So for maths, a good combination that we typically see for entrance for successful applicants, that is maths, further maths, and physics. For our chemical engineering course, and also for our biological sciences and our medical sciences courses, chemistry is usually the required subject there. And for PBS, our psychology course, maths or biology A-level is required. For engineering and physical sciences, typically maths, physics, and ideally further maths for those courses for engineering and physical sciences. There's more guidance on this really useful PDF that I've linked at the bottom there. It's called The Subject Matters. It's It's got information about science courses and also humanities courses. It's a Cambridge-specific document, but it's a really helpful one. If you're in year 11 and you're yet to choose your A-levels, it can be really, really useful for you. So, subject choices for arts and humanities courses then. I can see some questions that have also come in the chat. I will come to those in just a moment. Thank you for submitting those. So for arts and humanities courses, Cambridge, we typically advise applicants to take one or more of English literature, a language, history, maths, and you can combine those subjects with other subjects like another language, a science, economics, philosophy, geography, ancient history, RS, politics. I've not put all of them on there. It's not an exhaustive list by any means. And that guidance at the bottom there is this subject matters post-16 subject choices PDF that I've linked. So I'm just going to come briefly to the questions that I have received in the chat. So in terms of those UCAS choices, that is specifically for so you have 5, and if you're going to apply for medicine, dentistry, or veterinary medicine, then the 4 can be one of those, and then the 5th has to be something related. So in the example I gave, you could do 4 medicine courses, and then the 5th one would be something like pharmacology or biological sciences. So that's what I meant for that. Someone's asked about for applying for maths. Could you have maths, further maths, physics, and history? Yeah, absolutely. For all of our courses, and this goes for all institutions, provided that you're fulfilling the subject requirements, so the subjects you need to be taking at A-level or equivalent qualifications, and you've got a few of the ones that we recommend, then that's absolutely fine. We often find that a lot of our applicants have a really wide range of subjects that they pick because everyone is unique. All of their subject interests are personal to them. So long as you're fulfilling the required subjects and the recommended subjects where possible, then yeah, absolutely fine. The question that we have in the Q&A box, I believe we will answer in a later portion of the session, so I will leave that. It's about how you decide between two courses. I've seen another question come in about Oxford. I'm not able to answer that question, unfortunately, so do check the Oxford web pages for that. Okay, moving on then. So what I've got for you here are some screenshots. I've got 3 slides, some screenshots of example course page from Cambridge. And it's sort of things to look out for when you're looking at course pages online. What should you look for, and what is usually listed? What is the information that you can get from these course pages? So for chemical engineering and biotechnology, one of our courses here at Cambridge, you'll see that the minimum offer level is usually listed as 3 A-level grades with some IB equivalents as well. And that usually comes at the top of the entry requirements or applying section of the course page. At Cambridge, some colleges can have different subject requirements. So some can have subjects which all colleges require, and some courses can have subjects that some colleges require. Broadly speaking, all of the required subjects make sense, and they're usually either recommended or required by all colleges. So it broadly works out across the board with all the colleges there. And they all make sense for the course. I mean, it's not something completely random. And then for Cambridge, you will possibly have an additional requirement like a test or a submission of written work. So this depends on the course. The example I've got here for Chem Eng and Biotech, we have, and this information changes year on year, but for everyone applying this year, the ESAT is the test that you need to take for that Cambridge course. So this is the Engineering and Science Admissions Test. It's also the test that you would take if you're an applicant for engineering, the other engineering course we have, for our natural sciences course, and also for our veterinary medicine course as well. As you can see there from the screenshot, you have to take the test at a specific point, essentially before we are doing our selections for interview, which is part of the admissions process at Cambridge. So you have to sit that test at that point, and you will have had to pre-register. You will have to register in advance for these sorts of tests. You may have heard of the UCAT for medicine, the LNAT for law. We will cover this in later webinars in more detail. I think it's the Making a Competitive Application session. But essentially, for some courses, you have to do an additional thing For a lot of our competitive maths and science courses, that additional thing is an admissions test. Some of our humanities courses, those additional requirements can be things like submitting written work. For architecture, you have to submit a portfolio, for instance. So make sure on the course page, you have checked off whether you need to do anything additional, like a test or a written work submission. And then at the bottom of our Cambridge course pages, we have a grey box in the entry requirements section. This is a really useful piece of information for you because what it has recent cohorts of entrants, i.e. successful applicants, and what they did in terms of A-level subjects and what they got in terms of their achieved grades. So you can see and get a sense of where you might fit within the gathered field, as we call it, of applicants who apply to us each year. I can see some more questions coming in. I will take them at the end of the session. Thank you for submitting those. Do continue to pop questions in the Q&A box and we will come to those at the end. So degrees and careers. I promised at the start that we would touch on this slightly, so here we go. So there will be a dedicated session in this webinar series about the links between careers and university courses, degrees, but just a short portion today. Some careers do require you to have a specific degree. They need you to have that qualification. And on the whole, this is a really good thing. If you want to be a doctor, you have to have a medicine degree. If you want to be a vet, you have to have a veterinary medicine degree, etc. And some jobs have particular subject areas that you'll need to have a qualification in. So typically things like languages, to be a translator, things like that. Even though there are these careers that can require a specific degree, you can often achieve those qualifications through graduate courses or graduate training. You might have heard of a law conversion course. We also have graduate medicine courses as well. So what I mean by this is you don't necessarily have to get that qualification at an undergraduate level. There is sometimes the option to do it after you've done your undergraduate degree. So something like an 18-month graduate training course or conversion course. And the majority of jobs don't require you to have a specific degree subject. What they do is they just look for people who've got a good degree. So usually this is a first-class degree or an upper second in any subject. These are called open access careers. So jobs in journalism, publishing, finance, public administration, IT, law, lots of different industries, different career paths there. So where can you go after university? What are the different categories? And these are very general categories. So I'm not trying to imply that every job has to fit into just one of these or every industry has to match just one of these. But broadly speaking, these are the different categories. So after you've done your undergraduate degree, you can stay on in higher education and progress to postgraduate study, further study, we call it, with a view often to conducting your own research and teaching undergraduates. So those are academic careers, staying on and being a part of that discipline, staying in academia. Non-academic research, things like doing conservation work, pharmaceutical and engineering companies, you are researching, but you're not necessarily doing that purely for the purpose of conducting research and teaching undergraduates. You might be in a different industry where research is a key component, but you are not necessarily an academic per se, someone who is necessarily publishing your own papers, for instance. The third category that I have here, using your subject background. So this might be science communication roles, international relations, environmental consulting, translators. So for those, you can think of the subjects, the degrees, the subjects that you've studied at university and how they would relate and help you do these kinds of jobs. So things like environmental consulting, if you've done a geography degree, for instance. So lots of different ones there. I've just come up with a few examples for you. And then the final category, kind of a cop-out really for me, something completely different. So everything else is the category here. And I think I would put myself in this category in terms of the job that I have. So I'm using transferable skills. I studied classics at university. I don't day-to-day use my classics knowledge. If you were here at the start, you would have seen me say mediums instead of media. So I certainly wasn't using my classics knowledge there. But what I'm doing is I'm using skills that I've gained through studying at university. So these are typically the majority of jobs where you'd be using not necessarily your subject-specific skills, your subject-specific knowledge, but you're probably using other soft skills or employability skills or transferable skills. So analytical skills, problem solving, communication, all of these amazing skills that you can gain through the world of work, through university, and just through life generally. So I've got down there accounting, working in charities, the third sector, finance, software, data science. But that's not an exhaustive list either. So just checking how we're doing for time. I think we're coming to my last few slides before I turn to questions. So graduate destinations for Cambridge students. I have a really useful webpage for you. If you've not checked this out before, I would urge you to do so after this session. It's the Using Your Degree page on the Cambridge Career Service website. It's really interesting. You would go on this page and see all of our courses, and you will find typically the first paragraph would give you information on recent graduate outcomes. It would often give you proportions of where that subject, that course, the graduates from that course, go on to, the different sectors, the different industries, 20%, 30%, 10%, etc. And then the second part of the Using Your Degree page for whichever course you're looking at will usually give you an overview of the sorts of skills that employers look for. And then finally, there will be some suggestions and resources for exploring further career opportunities. If you're thinking about doing that particular course, it can be really useful to look at this now. You don't need a login to access this page. There are some pages and resources on the Career Service website from Cambridge that do require you to be a current student, of course, but there is also a lot on there that you can have a browse of right now. So do have a look there. If you're thinking about different careers and where you might want to go, that can be really helpful. So this is my last slide. If you're thinking right now, okay, I may have a better idea of what I want to study. I may know where to go to find out this information, but I don't really want to study just one subject. The way that we're taught at school, thankfully, allows us to access lots of different subjects and continue with as many subjects really as we want to continue with for a long time. And so when it comes to deciding what you're going to study at university level for your degree, you might find that the prospect of that is a bit disappointing. You may think, I don't want to just study one subject. So I want this slide to be reassuring to you if that is something that you're thinking, regardless of which one you end up choosing in terms of your degree, your course at university, there is nothing stopping you from keeping exploring and learning. Probably because the course that you've chosen, most of them are extremely interdisciplinary. So they naturally incorporate multiple subjects. Just like the real world, we are not siloed into different subjects. Every current issue, every topical question has many different subject angles into it, and it needs a lot of subject experts from very different disciplines to weigh in. So what you'll find is, and this is certainly the case for our courses at Cambridge, there are modules and topics that are part of one course that are also part of another course at the same university. So what we saw on the A to Z subject list was that there was a lot of those courses listed, of those subjects, listed A to Z. There are actually multiple courses that you could study that subject in. So that's what you'll often find. So you're really not really doing one subject. Again, to draw on my own example of classics, that's the study of the ancient world, the ancient Mediterranean. So I was able to study multiple languages and philosophy, art, architecture, history, literature, so many different subjects, right, that come under the umbrella of just one word, classics, or ancient history, for instance. So there are a lot of subjects like that. And also, while you are studying your course, whatever it may be, at whichever university you end up at, you can often do language courses or coding courses alongside your studies. And at Cambridge, we can often support you in the costs for those as well. We really encourage our students to take up those opportunities. We have the Languages Centre here at Cambridge. There's lots of opportunities for you to do additional studies outside of your degree. And then for medicine and veterinary medicine students specifically, There's also the option of intercalating. So the intercalation year for those courses is in the 3rd year, and you can study another subject in that year. So you would be doing something like perhaps a biological sciences related course, but a lot of our students who are doing medicine in their 3rd year opt for something like theology or philosophy. You can really do, almost any other subject pretty much. You can also have opportunities to study or travel abroad as well while you're doing your subject. You can do research projects. There are opportunities for internships, particularly in a place like Cambridge, where we have the science park, the business park. There are lots of companies and organizations where you can do research projects, you can do work experience internships. And also, when you're a student at university, it's often really easy for you to join a society that you're not studying the course of. So you don't have to be studying law at Cambridge to join the Cambridge Law Society, for instance. You can be doing another subject and still join that society. So they're often open to all students, regardless of the course that they are enrolled on. So finally then, before I take your questions and wrap up for today, possible next steps. You can narrow down your course choice options by looking at those course pages online, using the resources that are available to you. So that includes things like the Using Your Degree career service page that I showed you earlier, and looking for the information that you need from the course pages, things like subject requirements, making sure that you fulfill those requirements for the course. And a plug for one of the programs that we have coming up here at St John's, you can participate in university subject taster sessions. These are really helpful in getting you to think, okay, what is this subject actually like at university? What do they teach? How do we learn? What are the sorts of questions and topics I would be discussing in seminars, in supervisions, tutorials, what have you? And we have some masterclasses at St John's that we are running on Zoom in April. They're specifically aimed at Year 12 students, but we're currently, I think, last I checked today, we are under capacity. So if you would like to join and you're not in Year 12, then just get in touch with me and we should be able to sort that out for you. But they are aimed specifically at students who will be applying this year for their university courses. So if you want a taster of Cambridge level teaching and learning, they're all delivered by our academics here at St John's. And there should also be students in these sessions as well, where possible, student representatives who can answer your questions about how they found applying and studying for that particular course at Cambridge. So now I'm coming to questions. I will stop the recording here. I hope I've been recording. Yes, excellent. I never know. It doesn't flash up for me anymore. I can't see it. So I will stop the recording here. And if anyone has any questions, then they can get in touch with me. I'll put my email just on the last slide so that people watching the recording can get in touch if they have any further questions. Thank you. So I will stop the recording there.